Okay, you're welcome once again to um, at this page. Previously, we talked about uh, how to choose a research topic and then how to uh, design your research problem, as well as how to conduct your literature search. So today we're going to be talking about research methodology and the components of research methodology. So research methodology is actually the steps or the methods you want to adopt to carry out your research. So the methods you want to adopt to carry out your research is what is contained in research methodology. And the first thing to look at in research methodology is your research design. So what kind of research design uh, are you using in your work? For instance, if you're using a, a survey research design, it simply means that you are going to conduct a research that involves picking a sample from a defined population. So you are going to use a sample, of course, because it is a sample, a survey research design. You are likely going to use a questionnaire to collect your data. So you need to first of all state your research design, and of course, your research design stems from your 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 research problem as stated earlier, because it is your research problem that will determine the kind of research design you're going to adopt. And then the second thing in your research methodology is your population. Your population has to be well defined, because if your population is not well defined, um, it becomes difficult for you to pick your sample size. So most times, if your population is well defined, you'll be able to know how many elements are contained in your population. By elements, I mean, for instance, the number of people that are contained in the population. There are several ways of getting your population sorted, and then after you have sorted the population, then you will look at the sample size. Okay, the sample size. Most researchers or most students, especially undergraduate students, what they do is that they just pick a number and use as sample size. That is very wrong, because there are several ways of carrying out your sample. For instance, if your population is infinite, there is there is um, there is a formula called the Cochrane formula, where you can use to get your sample. But if your population is defined or is finite, you know the exact number of people or elements in your population. Then, for instance, you can use Taro Yamani. It's a popular formula we can use to get your sample size. But most times, after you get your sample size sorted, the sample size might not be you may not be able to use it just directly. For instance, you might add um, a certain percentage, either 10 between 10 and 30% as attrition. The reason why you need to add attrition is so that if uh, some of the questionnaires they're going to distribute, for instance, are not returned, you'll be able to make provision for the unreturned questionnaires. For instance, if your sample size is, let's say, 200, you might want to add, let's say, 10% of 200 to make it 220. So if you have added 220, if you have added 20%, 10%, which is 20 to 200, you have 220. So for instance, if after distributing your questionnaire, you have maybe you have distributed 220 and you have maybe let's say 190 returned, that is a good number for you to analyze. But you discover that if you had distributed uh, 200, exact 200, and maybe 160 or 150 was returned, you may have problems of catching up with generalizing your findings, because the number may not be adequate. That is just an example. So after you have selected your sample, then of course you will state your method of data collection. How do you want to collect your data? So for instance, if you're using a questionnaire, you if you're using a questionnaire, you may want uh, to design your questionnaire properly, and of course, so that you capture all the variables. If you have captured all the variables in the questionnaire, and then you state how you're going to collect your data, then of course you need to specify how you are going to. The next thing to do is to specify how you're going to analyze your data. Okay, how you're going to analyze your data. What techniques or tools are you going to use to analyze your data? Okay, now in analyzing your data, you might want to state all the tools and the techniques you want to use to analyze your data, so that you'll be able to um, convince um, the panel or the board, especially your proposal defense, that this methodology is these tools you have specified are the right tools or the techniques for analyzing the kind of data you are going to collect. Then, of course, after you have stated all this, then you probably will have to justify if all these things you have mentioned, all the tools you have mentioned that you're going to use are the right tools for you to use. Okay, so I'll go over them again. The first thing, like I said, is your research design, which is very, very important. Then after your research design, you state your population. The population is equally very, very important, because that will help you to get your sample size. Now, if you have gotten your sample size correctly, then you state the methodology you're going to use to collect your data. Then, of course, the techniques you're going to use to analyze your data. And of course, you state the justification for all the tools you have stated that you're going to use. So this, if you have done all these things correctly, then your methodology is well captured. So I will see you subsequently, where we discuss the next section. Like I told you, it's going to be a series. So please stay glued and stay